Namaste and welcome to another episode of Itihasdhir. We are joined today by two brilliant authors, Major Garg and Satyaki, and we welcome them to Itihasdhir. Namaste and welcome to Itihasdhir, sir.
Namaste. Thank you so much.
Namaste. We are also joined by two brilliant people, Aditi and Aditya. So thank you for having us.
So, sir, we'll dive right into the questions that we have for you because we are here to discuss their book Butshikan, and it's a historical fiction. And this book will make you go through so many emotions all at once. While we will be going on topics around the book, we'll make sure that our viewers are not disclosed the story and the plot lines of it. So, Aditya, please take the floor.
So, the first question that comes to mind is obviously when we hear the word Butshikan, we understand, at least people who've been reading history, we understand the basic literary meaning of it. And we have come, unfortunately, with our history to associate so many rulers now with the word. The first person, in fact, that came to my mind when I read Butshikan, the title was the Kashmiri king, Sikandar Miri, who led to the creation of the Batta Mazar. So, beyond the obvious literary meaning of the word, which please do tell our readers, what layers of meaning does the book carry, and why settle on this specific name for your book?
All right. So I'll do one thing. I'll start with the answers and then I'll hand over to Satyaki. It'll make easy. Otherwise, we'll
Absolutely.
Other. So the basic idea, let me tell you, was for the book cover as well as for the title. One thing in our mind, which we always discussed, at least it was clear in my mind, it should be very provocative, evocative. And actually, what you said, that people are aware, it's the other way around. Except people who may be into history, nobody knows what Butshikan means. Nobody has a clue. So the idea also was that people should have a topic of interest so that they can start discussing something. And this happened with us actually. There was a Pune book fest. We went for the book fest for 9 days. So we took an entire stall there to sell just our book. A lot of people just came because they were like, what is this? What does it mean? What is the name? Hai kya ye Butshikan? So nobody knows. So Butshikan, obviously, as you know, is Butshikan means somebody who Murti Bhanjak, jo Murti todta hai, that is Butshikan, somebody who is a breaker of idols. And it is a very, so like you are pretty sad when you're telling that, you are talking in a sad term, that sadly we have come to associate, but it is a very proud term from the other side. Somebody who has done it, they very proudly proclaim themselves to be Butchikans. And almost everyone, I don't know of any invader who did not do it. Everyone did it. Somebody to a lesser extent, somebody to a more extent. So plus the idea was any name should obviously have the essence of the book. That was also there. So the overall book, the जो भाव चाहते थे हम, तो उसमें भाव वही आ रहा था कि broadly क्या है किताब, what it is about. Also there was a problem. हाँ, ये problem भी था कि बुच्ची का नाम समझ नहीं आएगा लोगों को. So that also the issue was there. So we had a subtitle. That is why we kept कि भाई बुच्चिकन के साथ we will go for Tears of Somnath so that people can understand something. अगर किसी को समझ नहीं भी आ रहा तो something is there. Another problem, or rather another reason, was that what Bollywood has done is they have actually, they have mainstreamed these terms in a very positive manner. बुच्चिकन हो, काफिर हो, या जो भी ऐसी टर्म्स हो.
काफिर तो रोमांस हो गया ना.
काफिर तो रोमांटिक है, मतलब रोमांटिक गानों में काफिर.
Whenever you are in a romantic mood, then you should use that word. But anyways, let's.
Exactly. So point also was कि ये जो terms हैं, इनका actually मतलब क्या होता क्या है, और उनके दो perspectives भी हैं. We see it from a different perspective, the other side sees from a different perspective. So broadly this was the idea from my side. बाकी सातकी
जो deeper meanings है वो तो मेजर गर्ग ने clear कर ही दिया है. मतलब what was surprising in that deeper meaning context is the fact that these personalities in history are proudly proclaiming themselves to be Butshikan. It is not abuse, it is not a derogatory term given to them by someone else. So that was one layer of meaning which was very surprising to me, unsurprisingly surprising. And it was something which not only Maḥmūd of Ghazni was proud of, but even in the Pune Book Fest, there were individuals who came up to us, and one of them told me कि title बहुत अच्छा रखा है, and there was a pride on his face, and I was like, okay, thank you. So that is where the deeper meaning comes from, right? And you talked about Sikandar Butshikan, but you were talking about there are people who started it. There's a person who started it, and it goes back right to the advent of this this religion which we're talking about. The advent starts with this term Butshikan.
Right.
Only one more thing I would like to add is that I wasn't very much in favor of having this title. I wanted the focus to be on Hindu Sanatan Dharma. I wanted the focus to be on Rājendra Chola. I did not want the focus to be on Maḥmūd of Ghazni. Let me be very, very clear. I'm still a little apprehensive about the title because I want the focus to be on Somanātha Mandir, on Rājendra Chola. So maybe in the future we might just switch it up. We'll come to that later. But yes, Butshikan title, there is no doubt that it is very, very attractive and it catches your attention. So that was the main reason.
I'll pick up from what he said. एक one line I'll add when he says that the advent of this theology. अभी जिसने थोड़ा सा भी पढ़ा है या जिसको थोड़ा आइडिया होगा, they would know that the number one pilgrimage कह लो या central this thing कह लो. So what is that? That is a place where you know what has happened. अभी ऐसे मतलब कैसे politically correct terms में मैं कैसे कहूँ कि what has happened.
हमने book में लिख दिया ना politically incorrect terms में हमने book में लिख दिया है.
book में सब कुछ है, book के अंदर सब कुछ है. So but you understand कि I mean imagine your main the first whatever you claim to be, that is also, this is related to that also. So let it leave it there. You know, let's.
I mean, see, we've reached, and it's kind of sad as well, we've reached a place in society where even historical truths are denied today. And I mean, when we talk about the term Butshikan, the people who proclaimed themselves thus, they wrote very proudly, their biographers at the time, contemporaries at the time, they wrote very proudly that this man gave so and so orders to so and so generals to raise these many temples to the ground. And today we have historical deniers who say that if you quote Hindu proofs that mandirs were destroyed, then you are obviously taking, or if you're choosing the side of the victim will obviously exaggerate his worries. If you're choosing the foreigner's side, his writing, then obviously you're taking the side of someone who wanted to come in and divide and rule. If you're taking the side of the Muslim sources, the Islamic sources, the contemporaries who wrote at the time, you're obviously taking the view of zealots who wanted to make a larger shadow than they did. And essentially they're like, you know what, do not believe history altogether. Nothing happened.
History is a ping pong. In fact, I also sometimes get confused because what is history? At the end of the day, what I have understood is anybody who has written more books than you becomes history. If I write 100 books on a particular event and you haven't written your history on that event, it becomes history. It's very clear because let's say even the Christian history, what is that? They have written so many books that they have denied whatever they have done. So what becomes true is what becomes history. So it's मतलब कष्ट तो है, history वाला as such concept में भी कष्ट है. And when you're talking about denialism, तो अभी I'll again मेरे को एक example याद आ गया. Just कोई चक्कर नहीं चलता रहे. Let me. It's okay if it flows like this. ऐसा कोई चक्कर तो नहीं है ना? I think.
Yeah. नहीं, that is perfect.
Yeah, because you know a famous journalist who went to a terrorist in Kashmir. And they were sitting by the bedside, and the question was, okay, you did it for Kashmir. So he was like, no, I did it for Islam. That's on the face. That is happening on your face. No, you did it for Kashmir. I did it for Islam. So they are denying even that, what is happening in front of you on the camera. So क्या history तो मतलब बहुत पुरानी हो जाती है. We can imagine मतलब उसके साथ कितना क्या कुछ किया जा सकता है.
It's not just that. So just history denying kana, it starts from the most basic facts. There is this, I'm forgetting his Instagram ID. I don't follow that individual. So he calls himself a Gora who's roaming around the streets in in India, and he's doing research. And so he was recently at the Vishnu Stamp, which people now call the Qutub Minar. And he was like that the lady who was leading circles there of tourists.
You're talking about at Fauzi Bhai.
Yes, at
Amazing
Fauzi Bhai.
individual. Amazing
Yes,
individual.
he keeps on going around and he's doing his research. So he's also asking people to help him like fund his research. So he was like that lady is like, you know, she's calling it Indian architecture and all that. So he pointed it out कि ये Indian architecture नहीं है. This is Rajput architecture. This is Hindu architecture. It's Hindu civilization. And then she just like shakes her head and drops the matter there. Like a similar thing happened when I was in Kashmir. We were at the Marthan Sun Temple, and there was this group led by a religious preacher, and he was telling the kids that this is a place for picnic. And he and I, and there was another individual, we got in a fight with him. But we had to be politically correct and safe because we also had to return to our hotel. So we were like, this is not this is not a picnic ground. I was like, can you not see that the statues have been defaced? I was like, आपको कौन से picnic ground में statues defaced दिखता है?
But then,
So he's
Aditi,
like,
this is not just, you know, their narrative. This is something that has pervaded. If
but
you remember,
that's
just a
what
month
I'm
ago.
saying, that those kids, the reason when they grow up
Exactly.
as adults, they are so like they like horses with this like with this view because उनको वही सिखाया गया है. They're told to deny anything but their own truth, and their truth is the complete truth.
But
And
then
it's
this
just
happens so much. I mean, last month at Mahakumbh, at Varanasi, sorry, when we were at Kashi Vishwanath, the couple who walked by and the man was telling his children and his wife, वो देखो, वो विवादित ढांचा है, वही मस्जिद है, वो विवादित ढांचा है. And you are inside the temple premises. You are not facing the whitewashed part, you're facing the back, which clearly shows temple architecture which has not been whitewashed, and the gall you have to call that a masjid or a Vivadit Dhacha, at which point Aditi and I both got very angry and I shouted at him saying, आपको ये मस्जिद दिखती है, ये विवादित ढांचा दिखता है, मंदिर बुलाइए, अपने बच्चों को ये मस्जिद बुलाएंगे तभी जो है मंदिर वापस नहीं आ पाता है. So I mean, this is a historical amnesia problem. Anywho, Aditi,
I
please take
yes. So
the
I feel
conversation forward.
so coming on to the second part of
Okay,
the
can
question, I want
I
to
add a
ask.
comment?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please.
So last जो आपने you talked about Kashmir, अभी वो शाहिद कपूर की movie, what was it? उसमें भी तो what were they calling it? शैतान की गुफा, isn't it? That is what they
शैतान
used.
की गुफा, yes.
And on the second point, when you said Hindu, so और ये mainstream है, देखो mainstream media में भी, whether left, right, center, whatever, every media, they comfortably replace the term Hindu with Indian when they have something positive to say, and they want to denigrate you, they will just pick up Hindu, even उससे कोई लेना देना नहीं हो तब Hindu है, जब denigration
entire world this is going on. There's a TV series called Nirmata word लिखते हैं and then they write this is the Nepalese for the creator, and I'm laughing and smiling. It is not Nepalese, it is Sanskrit. I go to the British Museum in London, the Indus Valley corner, and the one who's giving the brief, she says that there is no religious connotation, nobody knows what religion they followed, and the first item that is displayed is the symbol of swastika on a plate in British Museum. So I look at it, I smile, I'm about to say something, my wife pinches me from behind, कहती है यार मत करो, रहने दो, please just let it go. So this is the problem in the entire world. मतलब
kudos to both of you that you took up you took a stand, at least yeah, you were pragmatic about it, but you have to take a stand with people so that they also get
no other way.
There was this in fact there was this a lady who was on guard over there, and she so my parents were also there, and she just like lashes out at us कि क्या जरूरत है अभी, and this is right before महाशिवरात्रि, क्या जरूरत है इतना आने की, आप लोगों की वजह से हमारी जिंदगियां खराब हो रही है and all that. And my mom is just like looking at her, and my mom is like, it's as if she has forgotten where she's saying all this. Like आप जिस जगह को like not the state but like the place, it's just I don't understand where people are coming from, and it's coming from the Hindus only who talk like this कि अरे इतना करने की क्या जरूरत है and all that. So we were talking about historical amnesia, and my next question is related to that. Historical amnesia ko I think the best way of promoting it is also through historical fiction, and I feel that this historical fiction is actually getting rid of the historical amnesia that we are facing. Otherwise we have a lot of authors who came up, like I think around 10-12 years back, who started promoting different angles, how she would have felt in this situation, how he would have felt, what he would have said. And they were all like characters jinke baare mein we never had a first person narrative. And the whole point is that historical fiction is like a very fine line, you know, between like creative liberty and factual integrity. Now we have seen historical fictions in the past which have very poorly meddled with our actual history, and they have created new lines of narratives, you know, like wo bichara narrative ko bahut promote kiya gaya hai. However, that is something like you feel anger, you feel angst while you're reading the book, but there's no bichara narrative. Like you also feel like this sense of pride when you're reading it, you know of the struggles. So, how did you balance the historical accuracy with the demands of a compelling storytelling? Because, as I had mentioned it to Satyaki ji, the book makes you go places on an emotional level, and he mentioned that Major Garg, like you, are majorly responsible for this aspect, uh, where it will literally wrench your heart out, but you still want to go ahead and read it. I don't want to like put it down. I'm crying, but I will still read the next page. I know I will cry more, but
So
I am
accurate.
not going to put it down.
Major Garg is so happy he made people cry. He's so happy.
See, there were a few things which were clear in our mind from the beginning. एक चीज तो थी कि we won't be politically correct. So the problem you were saying कि होती है बेचारा narrative इसलिए आता है क्योंकि you want to balance things out. We were कि जो जैसा है वैसा होना चाहिए. And again, when you are telling us कि इसको पढ़ के रोना आ रहा है या कुछ हो रहा है, this is what? This is not even 0.0000. This is not even 1/1,000,000th of what actually happened. This is ये तो it doesn't even cover the surface, not even the tip of the iceberg. ठीक है ना, कुछ नहीं है इसके अंदर, and it is just
It's a little
scraping.
mention.
Yes. So it's like a nano particle कह लो ना इसको. So imagine what if we are told about what everything which has happened the way it is. So one thing was we would not be politically correct. So that was clear. Second thing, we are like followers of, matlab, both of us are big fans and of Raji Malhotra ji. So following him, we were also very clear that anything Sanatan, anything Itihasa, we will not touch it. We don't have the authority to touch it. We don't have the authority to modify anything what has been written about Ramayana or Mahabharata or in a Purana. जो भी लिखा है. I have no authority to make up a new story about it. So वो जो parts थे, we were clear कि वो जैसे हैं वैसे आएंगे वो. Straight away वो आएगा. So these two things. और about the fine balance, I think problem. मतलब on the contrary, we got an opportunity because of historical fiction. Once we were clear कि politically correct नहीं होना है, we had an opportunity to bring out more and more truths about it, more and more truths about both the sides. So I think that helped us in मतलब fine balance ऐसे हमने बहुत consciously नहीं सोचा था, but because we had this broad idea, so that helped us out. For example, अभी I'll tell you जैसे there's a character called Bhole in the book, if you remember him, ठीक है. So अब history में there is one line about it. उसकी एक line है कि एक ऐसा character था. So we expanded on it. So it gave us an opportunity to bring out the underlying जो thinking है उसको through a story, but we did not actually meddle with the history उसकी क्योंकि it was just one line. We expanded on the entire story. Similarly, let's say Maḥmūd of Ghazni. अभी उसका जो उसने किया है, जो उसने तोड़ा, that is history, all right. But अभी उसकी जो personality है, what he is thinking, those have to be expanded on. So I think that was what we thought. बाकी I think Satyaki can explain इसमें what your.
Basically, पहली चीज जैसा मेजर गर्ग ने बोला, one thing which was very very clear was that we will not meddle with our Itihas and Quran stories. Like you have talked about, there is a craze these days of writing historical mythological fiction novels, and especially the craze is to make Ravan the hero, right? So that is what the modern writers are doing. What they are doing is that they're just going through the English translation of the Quran, and there is no shortage of stories, and just randomly pick anybody. I'm telling you, you open a random page in any of the Quran and pick any word, you'll write a short story on it. You can. Everything's already there. So we were very very clear. We are not going to meddle with it. What was the solution? The solution was that our real life characters will not include any Dev and Devis. first of all. We will utilize the stories from Ramayana and Mahabharata as a motivational aspect for the characters. The characters are Hindus. We are Hindus. Like today, we listen to the stories and get motivated and learn lessons. The similar thing is happening 1,000 years back. So the solution to that was get the Gita Press book, the Sanskrit and Hindi translation both. Read it. I'll give you an example of the battle where Guru Dronacharya is killed. Now there's a very famous scene there, Ashwathama Hatha, and the shang goes on. And so I wanted to know the right story, because what I know is what B.R. Chopra has told us. I haven't read Mahabharata. So I went into it, I read it, I reread it, then you need to translate it into English. Now that becomes a problem. So then there's a Sanskrit professor who, I call her Dadi. She was a student of my grandfather. She's a Sanskrit professor. I went to her. I was like, this is what I'm trying to do. She was like, okay, this is okay. So this is how we have tried to maintain the sanctity of our Itihas and Puran. And when it comes to the history, see, one thing which would be very, very clear in the book to people is that it is a what-if story. First thing. I do not want to mislead people. The entire concept of Rājendra Chola not going to the Ṣrivijaya Kingdom and going here is entirely fiction. So this thing, I do not want to mislead people. This thing should be very, very clear to them. So everything which Rājendra Chola is doing is fiction. Right? First thing. Now, secondly, the balance between the historical facts and fiction, like Major Garg gave an example of Maḥmūd of Ghazni. So I'll just give one small spoiler. Let me just, so that I can explain it better. The sources of Utbi and they have written Maḥmūd of Ghazni's stand.
Yeah,
the temple of Mathura. He says,
Sataki,
your net is breaking up.
yeah, rejoin करना पड़ेगा.
This is also thoda, I think, Bhagavad Kripa. Maybe God doesn't want you to give spoilers.
Actually, he's in a tough terrain and there's no light. उसके side में light नहीं आई थी, उसका कष्ट हुआ थोड़ा.
He told us.
He told us. He joined and he told us.
Yeah. So I think once he joins, he can continue that point, and I'll give another example. तब तक so मतलब actually we got a जैसे thin line वाला भी I understand that point कि कैसे है वो कष्ट तो है, because we got a rubbing from someone that how dare you write such a thing, you should not meddle with history. I got a huge rubbing at the Jaipur this thing, but I will not go into the details of what happened. But we got an opportunity. It was a great opportunity for us to actually bring in things which are not told, like temple architecture. You know, we got an opportunity to bring up. मतलब ऐसे बहुत सारे मौके मिले जहाँ पे we could actually talk about a lot of stuff which was not there. Sataki, are you back? Hello. हाँ, अभी you can continue. उससे फिर से बता दो उसको ना, because
हाँ, but am I audible? Is my video okay?
वीडियो नहीं दिख रही तुम्हारी, but you are audible. अगर तुम वीडियो बंद कर दो, I think शायद तुम्हारा better होगा नेट. Okay, he's out again. Okay, maybe we can continue. I don't know how to continue. अभी क्या करना है? We can continue on the next question या बाद में edit. You can edit this. जो भी कैसे भी करना होगा.
We can continue. Actually, Nito, you can take it forward अभी के लिए.
We can continue till he joins. So no, we got an opportunity to write about a lot of things which we wanted to tell. जैसे वो temple architecture, that is such a fascinating thing. अभी temple architecture is almost कोई पढ़ाता नहीं कहीं. I don't मतलब मुझे नहीं लगता कोई architecture school में कहीं पढ़ाता है कोई उसके बारे में. But the idea behind it and it's amazing, and so we tried to bring those things into this. So we got an opportunity to actually do a lot of things because we wrote a historical fiction. So that fine line actually helped us cross many lines, you know. जैसे history में I understand it is a greater problem than मतलब उसमें आप liberties नहीं ले सकते. इसमें we had a little bit of this thing.
So, but that's the thing. Like, I mean, we've had authors. Like, what I was coming at was like we've had authors who've taken this liberty, and they've created this whole line of, let's say, a lot of. I don't want to name any characters, उस हिसाब से, but like they've created this whole line of people coming up and saying, oh, you know what, we support XYZ character because he was always tortured and he was always, treated a certain way, and then like we have a lot of women who come up and say कि अरे नहीं नहीं Draupadi was treated a certain way while you have no first hand sources about those situations. So she's made, jabki she's such a strong character, but she's put out, or Ma Sita, they're both very strong women. They make their own choices, but they are presented as voiceless characters. So, and while reading this, as heart wrenching as it was getting, at no point did I feel a losing sense of pride. Like at every point, I was like, yes, like there was that pride factor also there. If I'm able to put my view across.
Yes. So see, जो आप देख रहे हो ना, what you're seeing in the book is what we are, me and Sataki, as individuals are. What we think, that is what our bhav is. So that bhav comes from what our bhav is, and that was also clear when you were saying ki pride. That was also very clear to us. It is not a, yes, it is history जो हुआ, whatever it's जो sad हुआ, but yes, pride तो मतलब why should you be made to feel sad about the struggles you have gone through? And दुनिया में अभी I think we are the only civilization who has actually the only civilization who can talk about it, because बाकी तो खत्म हो गए हैं ना, उनका बोलने वाला कोई नहीं रहा, हम बोलने वाले हैं इसलिए बोल रहे हैं, and उसमें अभी so I think that is a natural expression of us. ऐसा कुछ उसमें we did not have to specifically think. Plus देखो दूसरा एक और भी चीज थी, जैसे we were discussing कि whether we are writing the book to sell it or whether we are writing the book to bring out what we think. So मेरे दिमाग में हमेशा ये क्लियर था, इनफैक्ट सात्विकी से भी डिस्कस होता था कि भाई मैं किताब अपने लिए लिख रहे हैं, अभी बिकेगी नहीं बिकेगी दैट इज आगे की चिंता है, बट जो लिखेंगे वो लिखेंगे अभी, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली पीपल हिंदूज वोंट लाइक टू रीड द ट्रूथ. नो, हिंदूज को खुद को ही कष्ट हो जाता कि यार ये ऐसा क्यों लिख रहे हो, इतना कम्युनल, इतना ऐसे ऐसे मत लिखो. सो सात्विकी, आदित्य यू आर ऑन म्यूट पहले से ही, पहले भी या अभी भी आवाज नहीं आ रही है somehow. भागवत कृपा काफी हो रही है आज.
Hello?
Yeah, now you're back.
Okay. So sorry. No, I was saying, as Aditi was saying, but there's a tendency of, not standing true to the nature of the story and the character when Aditi talks about specific authors. On the other hand, this book deals with characters and the essence of the characters very well, as in it stands true to that. What I was getting at was the same point. I was about to ask you this. In a day and age where um, of course you said what happened was not even 1% of what is shown in the book, perhaps. And I mean, we see the same with a recent film about Shambhaji Maharaj, and we see that the tortures that he went through in real life, not even 1% of that has been shown in the movie, right? But the film is obviously communal, and Vikram Sampatji writes history, or Meenakshi Jainji writes history, and they are communal historians. So when history is communal, is there some degree of fear that the a book that is not history but historical fiction will also be perhaps deemed communal just by the title of it, if not even by the content inside?
It's already deemed communal. My wife already tells me that तुम एकदम extreme हो गए. So there is nothing that can be done about that. What is जो fact है वो fact है, and just on the note of that Chhawa movie, I would like to say something. Now the problem now with the movies, can you hear me? Am I?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So what they're doing is that in Chhawa, the one problem is about not showing the torture to the effect that it is. But even apart from that, our historical research, see, the movie should have been something, there is a tactical aspect to the Marathas. So both the things have to be combined when it comes to a storyline. The Śatrubodha aspect of the enemy, of what the enemy is doing, has been shown. The why hasn't been shown. Right? So it is also difficult for an audience to understand that what is happening, why is it happening. It looks out of context. It looks unreal. It doesn't look real. Why? Because the why hasn't been told. The book which they are reading, what it talks about, that hasn't been told. And at the same time, that's the one part. And the other part is, in the movie, there are no tactical aspects of the Marathas shown. There's a huge military tactical brilliance of the Marathas. So when you make a movie or when you write a story, you need to make sure that you are not writing it only because you think that showing that one torture scene is going to help you. No, it didn't work. Why did people, even the Hindus, why are they saying that not even 1% of the torture has been shown? Because it's just there. It's not organic. The story is not organic.
Yeah, so I'll just take the point forward. I haven't seen the movie, but जो मैंने अपनी side से सुना है, they have secularized the movie. After secularization, it is still very communal. But why? The why part, which is very important. Ultimately, this is the entire fight of history also, isn't it? जो सारी fight है वो यही तो है कि okay, why did they do it? And the answer is because they were emperors and it was the norm of the day. That is the excuse given. Norm of the day, emperors, economic reasons. You have a Marxist theory, okay, where is economic essentialism है भाई, सब कुछ जो होता है दुनिया में बस economy ही है, बाकी कुछ matter ही नहीं करता है ना, मतलब वहां पे आके रुक जाती है उनकी story. So that why is important, and in the book that why, that is throughout the book we have brought that why out. Why ये कर क्यों रहे थे भाई, क्यों आ रहे थे, क्यों कर रहे थे, क्यों तोड़ रहे थे, क्यों, whatever they have done, there is a reason for it, and the reason is from a primary source. It's not something which is उनके मन की उपज थी. It is, और आज भी वही हो रहा है. The why is important, and even today nobody is ready to speak that why. Even today we are not ready to speak कि कश्मीर में जो हो रहा है उसका why, wants to speak that why, और उसके why में अभी भी unemployment reason दिया जाता है, economy. These are the two reasons given by everyone. And secondly, जो secularism communalism की बात हो रही थी, the very concept, कल I was watching a short clip, उसमें विष्णु शंकर जैन and his father, the two great Jains were sitting on a show, and I feel so proud when he said that this concept of secularism should be thrown out of India. This has to be thrown out because the entire concept is bogus. This binary of secularism and communalism is bogus, and it exists only in India. दुनिया में और किसी country में नहीं है. There is no concept of minority rights on the basis of religion in any other country, at least what I am aware of. किसी में नहीं होता है. India में है. After we are ruled by the so-called minorities for more than 1,000 years, we have to give, after the country breaks, we have to give them special preference to our own denigration. So secularism, communalism, out of the window, whether it is true secularism, whether it is faux secularism, ठीक है ना, whatever it is, pseudo secularism हो या original secularism हो, there should be no place for secularism in India. There is no such concept. It is all a fraud, absolute fraud on the people of India. Actually Hindus only, हमारे पे fraud है. So
if I may quote a small section of your book without giving anything away, because this part actually stood out for me, because this is not something that I read in just your book, but something that I came across in Dr. Sampath's book as well, Waiting for Shiva, where he delves into the small episode that has happened at Somnath between Ghazni and the priest of the temple, where the temple priest has offered a lot of money, and he says that you can do whatever you want, just spare the idol, nothing else, just the idol, and we will give you so and so amount. And he says that, but that would make me a trader of idols. And I would much rather be known by the more honorary epithet of the breaker of idols, Butshikan. So I mean that line can so clearly, outside the context of economic motivation, outside the context of that they came to sort of have a political standing or anything, it shows with a lot of clarity what they came for. And that I think is very well portrayed in the book as well. So, I mean, while writing the book, was there any historical detail when you were researching, anything that sort of surprised you or challenged your original point of view and how you maybe envisioned how the story would turn up at the starting when you were writing?
Satiki, you can begin with this, the episode, then I can continue.
matlab, to be fair, I was surprised at every stage. I was surprised. A big surprise was that we keep hearing about. I'll talk about specifics. We keep hearing about. We keep listening. We keep watching about Rajputs always fighting with each other. That is what we know, right? And that is the reason why everything wrong which has happened in medieval history has happened because Rajputs were fighting with each other. Now, when I was researching and reading, and when I read Sitaram Goyal, I read R.C. Majumdar, the forgotten historians, I realized that, again, I might be giving a little spoiler here, but I realized that not once, not twice, but probably thrice, the Rajputs came together to defeat Maḥmūd of Ghazni. Right, it's a different matter altogether. But the fact was Maḥmūd of Ghazni was too strong. That is a different aspect. But the surprise, I didn't know about it. It changed my entire concept of how the story will go. Now, this is the historical part. Now let's come to our Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Puran, which is what I love to read about. And there's a conversation when I talked about the episode where Guru Drona is killed. There's a short conversation between Bhim and Guru Drona, where Bhim is explaining to him what is the meaning of Dharma. And I am surprised, and here I am sitting remembering the B.R. Chopra Mahabharata as usual, where Bhim is a Hulk. He is low IQ kind of a guy. And here in the actual Mahabharata, the critical edition, the Gita edition, it is Bhim. And then I researched about it more, and I realized that if you read Mahabharata, and I read people's comments when I searched about it, that Bhim is actually an intellectual guy who knows a lot. He's read all the Shastras and he knows a lot about Dharma. So I was again a surprise. 4 caliphs, the first four caliphs tried to get into Sindh and they failed. Nobody teaches us this. They tried. It wasn't that they did not try. They tried, but they failed, and they failed miserably. We watched the movie 300, but nobody tells us about the Jats of Kikan, a small group of brave Jats who fought and defeated the entire Caliph's army. So there was not one thing I read about Sankhya Darshan. I was amazed how, and then how it changes the story is the characters, how they're behaving, it changes. I read Sadhguru's book Karma. Matching at the same time, I started a few practices. When I read that book, I actually understood, obviously, not fully, but what karma is. It changed how the characters were behaving. It changed how the characters' stories ended in the book. So every stage, there's a seal of Chola's on the spine of the book. It is, I think, kept in Netherlands in one of the museums. Yeah, in one of the museums in Netherlands. I saw that seal. On that seal, you will see. I think I have it here also somewhere. On the seal, you will see this. This is the seal here. Right. This is a book, South India under the Cholas. Right. So in this seal, you can see a panther. There are 2 fishes, and there is a bow at the bottom. These 3 things are most prominently visible. The other things like a umbrella and a few paraphernalia. Right. So now this panther or this tiger represents the Cholas. The fish represents the Pandyas. The bow represents the Cherā-s. The surprise was that a seal issued by the Cholas has neighboring kingdoms on the seal, and the size is the same. I don't see the tiger towering over the fish or the bow. So again, that changed how I thought about the Chola Empire, how I thought about how their politics worked. Raja Raj Chola made Rājendra Chola the king while he was still alive. So Rājendra Chola and Rājendra Chola are ruling together. Rājendra Chola made his son the king while Rājendra Chola was still the king. Again, a surprise. So I was surprised at every stage. There is no limit to the surprises I had, because as I said, it involved a lot of research and I didn't know anything. So
yeah, I think it's the same thing. ऐसा मतलब surprise in the sense कि you are surprised and not surprised at the same time. You are surprised. You are not surprised because you know that you haven't been taught much, and as such मतलब I'll say कि I haven't read so huge कि हमें सब कुछ पता है. So I was not surprised because we don't know, but when you read, you are aware कि ये चीजें होंगी. The only thing is what happens is once you start reading, details come out. So the details are sometimes really scary. So जैसे you are अभी school है, NCERT की books, you are never taught about slavery. The number of Hindu women who have been taken as slaves and whatever has happened, you're not taught about that. मतलब mention भी नहीं है उसका कहीं पे. But and you are aware कि हुआ है, कि हमें पता है कि हमें पढ़ा है नहीं, but हुआ है. But once you start reading a book specifically on that, and when you go into the details, so it surprises you. So I think उस हिसाब से it is both a surprise and not a surprise. So yeah, I think Satyaki has covered this in quite a detailed and nice manner.
So there are so many emotional scenes. Like as I keep on talking about it, there's like a little anecdote also I have. That after reading the book, I had shared a copy of it. Like I had sent a copy to like a friend of mine, and so she's married. She was reading the book and she would keep on crying, and then she would get on a call with me and she's like, I can't read another page, it's like too, like I'm just going to cry so much now and all that. And she would keep it down, then she would pick it up again. And I think in between, while she was napping, her husband picked up the book and he's like what is this book, ye itna kyun ro rahi hai, kya hai isme aisa? He reads it, he ends up finishing it in like a day or two, and then he's like, okay, now I get it why you people are crying, it's okay. And my point is that like the book was an emotional journey for us also as readers. So like what was the most emotionally challenging scene or a moment for you to write, and like how did you traverse it, like without giving anything away? Like Jesse, you mentioned okay, I don't want to give away that part, because if I mention anything about
I want I want actually this question should be to you first of all. You can talk about it without like in generic terms. Tell us, because I want to understand what Aditi and what Aditya found emotional, whichever scene you found.
So for me, I think the scene where the priests were all tortured, that part of it was it wasn't even like there was a lot of graphic details, but how it happened. And again, it was like in like lines, so it wasn't even like a pura description. But I mean, for me that was challenging to read, because like just imagining, like I was picturing everything also, like while the destruction of the temples where there are visions. Yes, I think I can put it forward. That whole scene, for me, it was a very emotional part of it. Even, matlab, that whole part, or the story of even Bhola, for that matter. Like for me, that was also like a whole, or the sadhu that they meet on the way, that part of it where while that whole process happens, and like he was dealt with by Ghazni in a certain way. Like for me, those parts were like very heart wrenching.
Okay, Aditya.
I unfortunately read the book while I was, or rather, fortunately, I read the book while we were on a pilgrimage tour, and I get very emotional as it is. Ask Aditi, I cried about an hour and a half at the Ayodhya temple while entering it. Last year also, I had cried more than that when I had gone for the Pran Pratishtha. This time I cried an equal amount. I was reading it at that time. One scene that stood out more than anything else, I think, and that has made a very deep imprint on my mind, is the scene that talks about war techniques and how Indians fought war and what war was for them as an ideology itself, as something that, you might be fighting against someone that you consider an enemy. You might be fighting against an empire that you want to conquer, but what constitutes ethicality, what constitutes technique, what you can do, what boundaries you can cross, and what you cannot cross, and the kind of the reaction that you see from Indians when they come across something that they never imagined anyone could ever do, or something that they thought was unimaginable for them, something that no one, not even a barbarian, could possibly think of. And they see that happening to them, and they sort of, the psyche of the army at that point of time, that made an impact on me like no other scene. Of course, we've all heard of barbarity, as Aditi said, what happened to priests and everything. We've all heard of that at some point or the other. But this sort of we've all heard of villages, whole villages being slaughtered. We've heard of the dry earth policy, everything, but we've so I never thought something like that was, ever possible. So yeah, that.
I think you're possibly talking about one scene, one particular peak. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so guilty as charged. Here me and Satiki had a little difference. हमारे opinion में he wanted to keep it a little mild, and
I don't like people dying. I like smiling. I like good happy endings, feel good.
So
I don't like people getting all emotional and crying and dying. No. I don't like it.
So no, violence and gore. See, I don't have problem with violence and gore, but the point is, it is actually also a reality. Also, violence and gore is not something which is this is not anime which I have just imagined. We again, if ethics of war, like you're talking about ethics of war. So where are the ethics of war coming from? Those ethics are again coming from the primary sources. Those ethics are again, if you read their historical accounts, primary accounts, I'm saying go back to the original.
There are contemporary authors who have traveled with Maḥmūd of Ghazni, the poets.
I'm going back.
You go even further back.
I'm just thinking कि मतलब कैसे बोलूं बिना बोले. If you see, if you go to the theology, forget history. If you go to the theology and you read the theology, there is gore in it, and it is very, very clear what is to be done, how it is to be done, and there is no mercy, because you are from their point of view, you as in a kafir is what? You are not even filth. Forget about being human, you are not even filth. So you are the worst of creatures is the term that they use. I'll not use the Arabic term, but this is what they use for you. And so even when you read that, this is in line with that. It is not out of line with that. So whatever, even in contemporary world, whatever happens, and we suddenly try to dismiss everything as political, one thing people should be very clear. There is no distinguishing line between politics and religion, what you call politics and religion, in the theology, in their theology. It is majority politics, minority religion, if you go by the definition. So politics and religion are intermingled within the theology. So when you try to differentiate between these two to give an excuse, it doesn't work. So you were talking about getting emotional. See, we crying, so you cried at Ram Mandir because Ram Mandir must be it's a place like that. Last I visited, I went to Aurobindo Ashram. I cried for a couple of hours there. वो तो उस जगह का aura है, ठीक है? That is there. I would also cry when I watch a Kashmir File for 3-4 times, and I cried every time in the theater. That happens. But I feel angry when I read articles in Indian Express or a Hindu, or if I have to read an NCRT, I get angry. I never cried when we were writing this book. There was not even a drop of sadness. We did not shed a tear, not even a single. It was exactly the opposite. It was a very cathartic experience for us to actually tell the truth. We never अभी कैसे भी ले लो, I don't know how to explain it, but that is how, this is how it happened. We never cried while we were writing. Now you're telling us those things, we feel emotional. I am feeling emotional right now, and जब से हमारी बात हो रही है, it's a very frank conversation we are having, when you tell about those scenes and I now think about those scenes, I'm feeling emotional about it. Otherwise, when we were writing, it was a very, relieving and cathartic experience, because at least we are able to speak our minds out. जो है, मतलब अब टीवी पे जो बोल रहे हैं उनको तो बोल नहीं सकते कुछ कि भाई क्यों उल्लू बना रहे हो हमें, मतलब आनंद रंगनाथन इज द ओनली पर्सन हु स्पीक्स आउट ही कैन. अब हम तो बोल नहीं सकते ना. अखबार पढ़ते हो तो वहां पे भी इतना कुछ लिखा होता है, यू जस्ट कैन फील एंग्री ओवर इट. वी डोंट हैव कंट्रोल. हियर वी वर एबल टू speak it out. So for me it was cathartic. He never felt emotional. There is nothing कि मैं कहूँगा कि ये scene मेरे लिए emotional था, ये वाला था. No, it was a cathartic experience for me at least. So बाकी साथी can tell.
But when we were writing those scenes at that time, Major Garg was very, very clear that whenever a Hindu reads it, he or she will cry. When we were writing it, we knew what emotion we want to bring out from our readers. Firstly. Secondly, when it comes to emotionally challenging, like I said, from a writer's point of view, from a fan point of view, I don't like deaths. So I was always against killing of characters, but then if in the Game of Thrones there is no red wedding, there is no fun, right? So I knew at the back of my mind that it increases the emotional aspect in the story, wo jhatka lagta hai. So that was the part I wasn't very, it was a little challenging for me to accept it. The other part, last thing I would like to mention is, like Major Garg talked about enjoying writing it. I absolutely loved when I was writing that scene inside the temple. Mathura chapter mein jo scene hai, I was flying when I was writing it. I wanted to write so much more. That it was so much fun writing about. You talked about the scene atop Kalo Dongar where Ghazni is standing, and again that sadhu. Now that entire scene is, people read it and there is gore and there is emotion, but it was a lot of fun writing it. Because when I'll tell you how I write. When I write, I transport myself into that character. That is how I've read books since I was a kid. When my Baba used to teach me stories and tell me stories of Mahabharata, Ramayana, Chandrakanta, Katha Sarit Sagar, all these stories, I used to take myself there. So in this case, I took myself and I became Maḥmūd of Ghazni. And then I realized how he was enjoying it so much in that moment, in that point of time. So writing everything was a lot of fun for me. In the end, I don't know how it happened, how it works. It was a lot of fun. Yes, the deaths were emotionally challenging. Yes. But the writing the scenes, describing those scenes, those conversations, was a, like Major Garg said, a cathartic journey altogether.
As you mentioned,
can I add to it? Okay, so I think Satyak's wife, she did not like the gore. Or kya tha? Matlab, she was like कि ज़्यादा हो गया.
हाँ, तो I don't wanna get to my wife again and again ना. तो इसलिए मैंने इस बार नहीं quote किया.
ठीक है.
So I decided not to quote my wife.
Yeah, so दूसरा point कुछ मेरा था उड़ गया मेरे दिमाग से.
ठीक है.
चलो, we can continue.
Was like जैसे deaths and all वाले जो scene आ रहे थे, मतलब those I was still like, I wouldn't say I was fine with it. But I think वही the part that was moving you the most was वही जैसे you said ना कि अगर red wedding नहीं है तो that sudden twist is not there, तो वो मजा नहीं आता है वाला चीज. Like, okay, I will not reveal the character, but the one character who then eventually meets a grisly end, so to say. But like how he meets the end is not specified. It's just there that okay, they saw it and फिर पता चला कि अच्छा हाँ ठीक है, like मतलब he did what he was supposed to do, but like he didn't make it. So those parts were there. Like in those parts, it's like a very bittersweet moment. But the parts which make you cry the most are the ones जहाँ पे where they are, let's say, talking about Somanātha, or वही जैसे like inside the temple. Those ones like move you because you're also seeing the psyche that is like being exposed. And while we're also talking about the smaller characters, which made like a lot of difference, I wanted to know that like a lot of historical fictions, they focus majorly on the grandeur of the bigger figures. So जो everyday people होते हैं who had like their own little roles, like you said कि the character Bhola, like there was just like a one-line reference to it. So, but they do make changes. They do bear the weight of the changes that come in our history. So, how did you decide whose perspective you'll include in Butshikan and how you'll go ahead with those perspectives with like the very limited information that you had about those people?
Okay, I'll just add a couple of things to the previous thing, what you said. People should not get the idea that this is all about crying and everything. This is also a mystery. There's a lot of mysteries are there which will be revealed. It is also a thriller. It is not a mono-dimensional book, so people should not understand. It's not a history book at all. It's actually a novel which you'll enjoy. Even if you don't like history, you will enjoy it. So people should be at least clear about that. Don't think कि ये history पढ़ने के लिए किताब नहीं उठाओगे. There's plenty of that stuff also. और जो पहले I wanted to say a thing is सातकी के बारे में I wanted to reveal a secret. He is also a poet and he's also an actor. So when he's telling you that he transports himself into that character and whatever he was telling, he has acted in matlab school mein he did, and he's an actor in the sense that he is that person. He has done that drama वगैरह जो करते हैं school में, he has done that. So when he is transporting himself, so I think it comes from that part. So maybe future में कोई movie बनेगी तो तुम्हें एक role देना पड़ेगा. We'll decide तुम्हें क्या कौन सा role है ना. We have to decide that. So coming to your question, see, ये जो problem है perspectives की, I can understand this. Again, this problem can come in history because history will come from the perspective of very few people. Unless you go to the oral histories, where you can collect the histories of people, then you can have more perspectives. And again, oral histories भी मतलब after so many years क्या oral history हो गया, कौन collect कर रहा है, इंडिया में कोई नहीं हो रहा है. So history में I can understand there is a problem of perspectives. इस बात में सात्यकी was very clear and he would tell me this कि we need to have as many point of views as possible. So he would tell me this thing बार ना, and he would tell me कि हर character का अपना point of view बताना जरूरी है, and it will make the story more interesting also. Plus it is important because see, it is not, इसमें ऐसा तो है नहीं है, in the book it is not that Rājendra Chola and Maḥmūd are the only two characters. There are other characters. There are characters who have their own personalities, who have their own backstories, who have their own lives, who have their own motivations. So it is important to bring out their stories also. And obviously, also, yeah, this thing we have consciously done. It is at many places. I don't know if you remember, अभी मैं reveal तो नहीं करूँगा. I'll just tell you in generic sense कि even the perspective of people is brought up. The populace. At a few places we have tried that. जो आम लोग हैं वो क्या सोचते हैं आपके बारे में, या आम लोग इधर वाले उधर के बारे में क्या सोच रहे हैं, इधर वाले उधर के बारे में क्या सोच रहे हैं. So we have tried to go with that. So I think that was the broad idea. Satyaki can tell me.
Yeah. So basically, the point is that a story will remain incomplete if it does not include multiple point of views and perspectives of the common man, right? So what happens is, I have always believed and realized that a story is written by the characters themselves. This is what happens. This is how I've written it, or this is how I've thought about it. So when you're writing about one character, then you write about another character with whom he's interacting. So wo jo dusra character hai, he's the captain of his bodyguards. So now you want to make it even more interesting. So the character moves ahead. The story moves ahead with that character now. There's a backstory of that character. In the backstory of that character, there are probably a couple of more characters. To complete a character's backstory, see, I'm talking only from the sense of how you write it, right? So it automatically, a good and an interesting story will automatically include a wholesome perspective of a narration or a section or a chapter or action, which cannot happen if different point of views are not included in it. So the perspective of people, like you asked in the question, that whose perspective to include, it wasn't a conscious effort that, okay, this perspective and this perspective to be included, but it automatically, organically, different perspectives got included because that's how the characters went. That's how reality goes. That's how reality works.
Yeah, I think the characters, they had to tell their stories. I mean, if you look at the other characters also, I can't take the name. There's a female there, isn't it? The female warrior. I mean, if you read the story, I mean, who will tell a story? We have told a story. I'm not revealing anything. I'm just saying who will reveal a story. So she has a story. she had a story which has to be told. So, and plus whenever, so yeah. Yeah, continue, please.
So sir, since you talked about Satyaki sir being like one of the actors, कुछ वो रहेगा. So अगर Butshikan is taken into a visual medium, like a film or a series or even like a graphic novel, if that is to be undertaken, what aspect would you say should not be touched at all? Like the whole book, would you want it to be displayed as it is? Yeah. Which elements would you not want to be touched at all?
Okay.
Nothing should be touched.
See, okay, so इसमें I have a इसका opposite है. Touch मतलब देखो, you want to secularize it, that should not be done, obviously. What actually हमें realize बाद में हुआ ये. When we were writing, we did not realize it. अभी हम discuss करते हैं आपस में Satyaki and me. Instead of rather than actually removing some part, we would actually want this to expand much more. क्योंकि हमने we realized that what we have done is we have put a lot of things in one book. This book could easily be a trilogy, very easily. We don't need to do anything. We just need to expand on the same things, same story. We just need to put in more English and expand it more, make it more probably, simple for like, or expand karna hai. So if it has to become a, go into a visual medium, it needs to be expanded. Like, yeah, I can understand the limitation of a movie or a, graphic novel में limitation रहती है because you have to compress the story. But this is more, मतलब बनाएगा कोई नहीं, but अगर कोई बनाना आप में से लेट से कोई मतलब कोई हमारे को सुन रहा हो, कोई कहे, तो it is for a TV series, because when you read the chapters like भूला का ही है, when you read a particular chapter, you can understand that one chapter is in itself an entire 1 hour का, when you have a series का 1 hour का episode बनेगा उसमें. So we would like to expand on the things which are there in the book rather than, I don't think there is anything to shave off in this.
Yeah, basically, like Major Garg said, one term of reference is that it should not be secularized. That is one term of reference which ours would be if it is adapted. Secondly, one aspect, if we have to specify, I would like to specify the use of Sanskrit non-translatables. It's a book by Rajiv Malhotra ji. So that book talks about how there are certain Sanskrit words which cannot be translated into any other language. So we have incorporated those terms specifically in our book. So that is one thing very, very specific, which I wouldn't want people to change the term Atma to soul. Very, very categorically, we've used these terms, even though our level of knowledge, because all these words are related to the Vedic Sanatan Dharma, and to understand their meaning, it's not, you cannot read a book and you think that you'll understand everything, but we have tried our best. So those Sanskrit non-translatable terms, not to be changed. The Islamic terms which we have used have to remain like that because they have a particular meaning. There is a reason why, for example, the term dawat, if that word is used in a book in a certain context, that word has to be used. It cannot change to dinner because it is not a dinner. It's not a feast. It means something else.
Dawat rice.
So that is something which we would like to change. And more importantly, I was thinking of working on expanding the book right now only, because there are so many things in it. For example, I'll give you an example. There's a discussion between a Sufi and a monk in the first chapter, right? Now, I love that conversation, but I would love to expand that Sufi character and get into that thought process, which I probably have just finished in one chapter. But it is another character. It can further go on. There is another scene which we were thinking of writing, again a dark scene, everything dark and slow burn is what Major Garg likes. I like it fast paced, and dark is okay. But anyway, so there's another scene in our mind. So cutting off, so there is no possibility. Yeah, we would like to increase more, but to answer your question, the term of references, it shouldn't be secularized in any manner. Sanskrit non-translatables and the Islamic terms, the way they've been used, they should be used like that, and that will go a long way in making sure that the message which we want to convey is getting conveyed in case it gets adapted into a visual medium.
This is again the terms of reference. We have same this is getting translated in the book is getting translated in Gujarati and Marathi. Also, it is underway. So we have talked the same thing to those guys. Ki bhai, ye jaise hai, these Sanskrit non-translatables, the Islamic terms, these have to be the same because there's a reason for it. And so, मतलब कल को देखो ऐसा है ना, कल भूचाल आ जाए, हम निकल जाएं, कुछ हो जाए, तो कम से कम ये किताब में we'll be our authentic self. So yeah, and yeah, I have a question for Satyaki, if you can, just indulge me. अगर महमूद गजनी का रोल प्ले करना है या तुमने स्लेव मास्टर का, कौन सा बेटर है तुम्हारे लिए?
Slave master,
ना?
Slave master.
Done. Yeah.
Slave master.
Okay, so
the lot of emotions, lot of variety. That is again another character which we would have wanted to expand, and that's
much more.
Which we have thought of. So
yeah, please, Aditya. Sorry.
So, I mean, you've mentioned a lot of books that you've read that have added context to your book, that have helped you write Butshikan. What was your research process like, first of all? And what sources have you, used, lesser known texts of sorts or oral histories that have played a very key role in shaping the narrative in the book?
Okay, so I'll be honest here. Satyaki has delved much more into history. I do not enjoy history. I read it, but I don't enjoy it that much. But so I used to enjoy reading about theology, whether it is R or that one. So for me, it was pretty easy actually, because you don't have to go anywhere. You just have to read Quran. You just have to pick up Hadith, and you have to read the Sirat, which is the biography. So you have to go through these. They are very primary. These are the primary sources. I mean, what more authentic can be there? So the greater problem comes with history. So I think Satyaki will expand on this one.
So when it comes to research, first of all, Sitaram Goyal and R.C. Majumdar. But see, the surprise is that 5 years, 6 years back when I was writing it, I did not know. So yeah, so Sitaram Goyal, R.C. Majumdar. Apart from that, for Maḥmūd of Ghazni, there's a very good book by Muhammad Nazim. It's written in the earlier 20th century, the Lives and Times of Sultan Maḥmūd of Ghazna. It is, the book is here, I can show it to you here. Right, so this is an Oxford publication, and it is an excellent biography of Sultan Maḥmūd. The author is a learned of Persian as well, so he has read the primary sources of Utbi, Gardizi, Al-Baruni in that language, and then based upon that, he has written this book, and he has mentioned specific sources with specific actions and references. So for Maḥmūd of Ghazni, this book was absolutely fantastic. Apart from that, like I told you, Sitaram Goyal, R.C. Majumdar. When it comes to Mahabharat and Ramayana, Shiv Puran, Bhagavad Puran, we've taken episodes from there. For that, it was very, very clear to pick up the Gita Press. However, we could not stop there. When we talk specifically about our Puran and Itihas, stories from there, just the Gita Press translation wasn't enough because we had to translate it into English, put it into that context, right? So if I just pick up the exact literal English translation and put it there, there's no point. So after that, what I did, for example, is ISKCON has a website where they have given the commentary of Sri Prabhupada on the entire Bhagavad Puran, all the cantos. So now there comes the Gita Press translation, which I've read the Hindi, my Hindi is okay. So I read that. Then I read the commentary of Sri Prabhupada. Then after that, I go on the internet, I read a couple of more references. Then I'm getting stuck in a word, right? I'm not sure whether even Gita Press is translated it right or not. So then I go and try to find out what is the root source of the word to understand its exact meaning. So like I talked about this, I have a very senior Sanskrit professor who's just like my grandmother. So then I go to her. So this is how the research process went when it comes to our Itihas and Puran stories. When it comes to our history, like I told you, Sitaram Goyal, R.C. Majumdar, Meenakshi Jain, they've all written from primary sources. And apart from that, there are articles by Meenakshi Jain, there was an article by Romila Thapar on the Somanātha Temple. No, it is very important. See, Śatrubodha is important. So Śatrubodha is very important to understand what the other side point of view is, so that either you counter it in your own narrative, which you want to set, or you use it for any other purpose. And then you go onto the internet, you see discussions, you see, I have had a discussion on there's in our book, we have mentioned a small debate about the one system, right? So my understanding, again, our understanding is very limited. So what do? I go to a video of discussion between Subhash Kantji and Sanjay Dixit ji on Jaipur Dialogues. I go through that entire video, note down their references, and then go and see those references, and then go and see the commentary of Sri Prabhupada on those references. Then I go on X, I'm asking people questions. So when it came to our Puran and Itihas, we did not leave any stone unturned. And similarly, the historical research, different books, Meenakshi Jain, I already talked about Kautilya's Arthashastra, to understand the foreign policy, the strategies, the weapons which are used. The weapons which I've used in the book come directly from Kautilya's Arthashastra. The battle formations which I've used in my book come directly from Kautilya's Arthashastra. So that is how the entire research process went.
Yeah, in fact, like he mentioned some of the things, like Meenakshi Jain, many of the descriptions we have given about Somnath, they're directly from the historical sources only. That is why, I mean, otherwise, how will we know कि कहाँ से है? And secondly, अभी इसमें जैसे referring to Srila Prabhupada's commentary, अभी हमारे यहाँ तो commentary अलग-अलग चलेगी ना. अभी द्वैत हैं या अद्वैत हैं या विशिष्ट है, जो भी है, commentaries will be different. So यहाँ पे तो हमें, in fact, हमें क्या, मतलब ये कष्ट तो सबको आएगा. This problem is huge because we have been cut from our roots the moment Sanskrit has been removed from our this time. And the moment we don't know Sanskrit, we have to rely on everything is a secondary source after that, because you are reading a translation. So, you know, that problem was there. So I think Sataki put in a lot of effort for that. He has already explained. So that is how it went.
And I would just like to add that not only this, Sadhguru's Karma, the book, that was a reference, huge reference material for me. Sankhya Darshan, I would like to show this book to people. This is a Swami Niranjanand Saraswati ji. He's the head of the Munger School of Yoga, the Bihar School of Yoga in Munger. And this is a book on Sankhya Darshan. It talks about the theory of manifestation. We only read about the theory of evolution, which only talks about the physical aspect of it. There is a theory of manifestation which talks about 25 different evolutes. It talks about manifestation at an internal level and an external level, a subjective level and objective level. So all of this went into writing it.
So, okay, I'll since he's mentioned this, I'll also add another point. Isme, see, one difference between Sanatan and other religions is, abhi Dharma hai hamara to, one difference is very clear. I mean, theory is there. We have theory, but that is theory is to actually guide you somewhere. So theory ke saath you have practice. You have to do your sadhana. So in my life, and even in fact Sataki's life also, one part is theory, one part is experience, which you get through sadhana. And once you're doing your sadhanas and when you read a little bit of theory, Sanatan becomes very natural. It becomes such commonsensical. You feel कि यार ये इसमें मतलब इतना confusion क्या है? काहे को science और इसकी लड़ाई करा रहे हो? It is so very simple. It boggles your mind because it is like यार ये तो this is but obvious. ये जो लिखा है, जो समझा रहे हैं, this is so obvious to anybody who has expanded once you expand your consciousness even a little bit, you'll be able to easily understand things. The problem only is कि वो theory के level पे जब दुनिया चलती है, intellectual debates में चलती है, when people are trying to convert each other on the basis of intellectual debates.
Logic and science becomes the parameter and nothing else.
And logic is so superficial. Abhi, logic, and in a sense, logic is required for the world. Yes, I mean, that is logic की अपनी importance है. Logic is not the ultimate. Ultimate is the experience. Ultimate is when you go beyond logic. I mean, हमारा सारा है क्या? हमारी सारी पद्धति is going beyond logic and beyond your mind. What is your experience? आप कुछ भी पहुंचोगे तो मतलब enlightenment क्या है? He has gone beyond this thing and is experiencing the entire universe. He can experience everything. And he mentioned the book Karma by Sadhguru. I mean, just imagine till now we also haven't written much. अभी कर्म सदगुरु ने लिख दी है, तो we have a source. मेरे को अगर कर्म के बारे में उससे पहले कुछ नहीं है. In the sense, this book tells you about कर्म. उससे पहले कर्म is whatever you want to. मतलब जिसका जो मन किया वो कर्म है. So I'm thankful.
ऐसा नहीं है. But the point is that we, the common people, that discussion of what is karma, you will only understand when in your family you are having that discussion. In your family, so the point is not that the understanding of karma did not exist before Sadhguru wrote it, but
No.
yes, to write it and in a.
मैं वो नहीं कह रहा हूँ. नहीं. देखो families में भी it is what अच्छा कर्म बुरा कर्म ही है ना. उतना ही रह गया ना.
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. I believe that we have completely lost on this concept of spiritual learning in our homes.
Yeah, so
it exists. You read Bhagavad Puran, you read Gita, it exists. The concept of Sankhya Darshan exists in Bhagavad Gita.
I think what Major Garg was trying to say, if I'm not wrong, was the point that obviously our Puran and everything, usme knowledge is not the problem. The problem is the penetration of that knowledge to the grassroots. Someone like Satguru, when he writes about karma, I think reaches a much larger audience than today a child would learn, because he wouldn't read the Bhagavad Puran in the first place, maybe.
It's making it accessible.
That's true.
That's the point. So, sorry.
So I mean, sorry. No, so I mean, a big part of the book delves, I mean, the title of the book, the subtitle of the book is, it is Tears of Somanātha, right? So a big part of the book deals with the destruction of our sacred places. One of the most impactful scenes comes from Mathura. So, I mean, it is a theme that is recurring in history. One of the books that you've mentioned also at the end in your bibliography is Hindu temples and what happened to them. And so it is, I think, a 1,000+ list of temples that were destroyed, and that is also an incomplete list by Sri Sitaram Goyalji. So how do you think such events have shaped our identity, and what impact has it made on our collective memory as a civilization, apart from the historical amnesia, of course?
Okay, it's a very broad question, but the thing is, they were successful. So when you're saying what impact it had, in fact, even in the book, we have mentioned about this, that they were very clear that we have to destroy. Like, what is the nerve center? What is Sanatan? It comes from where? It will come from the temples and the gurukuls. And so once you destroy those, once you burn down Nalanda, once you burn down millions of books, so the impact, it was, the thought process behind it actually succeeded a lot. And so what we are today, we are, I mean, I'm including myself, we are deracinated Hindus in name only. And what had happened then was accentuated again during the British rule. And it has been taken forward in a much more, like, what has happened post-independence is, I think, like, we did not have control before independence, na? Uske hamare haath mein nahi tha. Okay. What have you done after independence? You have actually absolutely, walked in the same line. And I will start from the constitution itself. If you, matlab, like J.S.I. Deepak, he says it's a double whammy, na? Ki bhai, we were under double colonization. So I will also talk about double whammy, but another double whammy, in the sense ki post-independence, our identity, what is identity? हमारी कोई identity नहीं है as such. हमारी identity भी है तो मतलब बातें करने के लिए है. Like even the people who say we are proud Hindus, we actually don't understand what is Sanatan. We don't actually understand what it means to be a Hindu. हम तो गांधी जी वाला पैसिफिज्म लेके सनातन बना रखे हैं हमने. एक एंगल तो ये है, ठीक है ना? I mean पैसिफिज्म मतलब गीता में भगवान हाथ, मतलब भाई हाथ जोड़ लो यार, तुम गीता, या तो गीता पढ़ लो या फिर गांधी जी का फंडा पढ़ लो. So our identity has been totally distorted, and the double whammy I say is we have been, one, dehinduization, and second is dehumanization. We have been dehumanized also, and we can see it. Abhi parallels. Abhi you can see every single day what is happening in India. Nobody talks about it. It doesn't make it to the main page. Bangladesh mein whatever is happening, same thing happened earlier. Mandir toot rahe the, log mar rahe the. Same parallels you are seeing. कश्मीर में whatever happened, it is the same thing ना. उसमें difference क्या है? पहले एक राजा आके कर रहा था, अभी the people with the same thinking are doing it in a different manner. The mode has changed, scale has changed, ठीक है? Maybe it is not happening at the same pace, it is happening in a more subtle manner, but the same thing is happening today. And I can take examples from within India. You look at Afghanistan, we have been wiped out. ठीक है ना, 1/3 से लाख 2 लाख रह गए 90s में, अभी वही लास्ट जो हैं बचे खुचे वो भी निकल गए हैं. बांग्लादेश में what around 32% थे या कितने थे तब, अभी कितने 8 से नीचे चले गए. 2050 will be over. Pakistan में already below 1%. Same is happening within India. I think we are a minority in a large number of districts. So and go beyond that. अभी what have we done? We have brought in Right to Education Act ले आते हैं, ठीक है. Right to Education Act आ गया, and you give an exemption to the minority institutes because you have Article 30 and articles Constitution के डाल दिए, and you bring in amendments to the Constitution. कितने सारे गुरुकुल बंद हुए because they could not fulfill the criteria जो आपने रख दिए कि भाई these are the infrastructure criteria, this is the ratio for the teacher and the student, and this is this. Gurukuls had to be closed. So we are just going in the same direction, and we are actually unaware of that. Matlab, I like to talk about this thing because I feel very strongly about it. We are living in a bubble. In fact, the larger Hindu society is also living in a bubble when we think that we are somehow, I'll take a few minutes if you allow, okay? Because we are living in a bubble because a lot number of Hindus think that we have a revivalism going on, then we are coming back to life or something like that. Nothing of that sort is happening. This is a mirage which is happening. I think Nupur Sharma of Op India puts it perfectly. वो कहती है कि whatever I am writing, I'm just writing we are going towards.
We are documenting our own end.
Exactly, and that is very true. If one has to understand deeply, अभी Jaipur Dialogue में I went there, I met so many people ना वहाँ पे, so many committed people, and I met people, and they're like, okay, we are having this training, and I'm going to the firing range, I'm learning how to fire and this and that. I'm like, bhai, you are totally lost if you're doing all these things. This is not the way to go about it, and this is, somehow we have constricted ourselves to कि भाई अगर we are in a good political position that we are going forward. No, we are not, because there is something called beyond politics. There are other fields also, isn't it? There's a large societal field. There is a large economic field which we have left empty. You are nowhere there, economic field. And again, even in the political field, आपकी सरकार, जो so called आपकी सरकार, again आपकी सरकार नहीं कहते, let's say Hindus, which is not anti-Hindu, ठीक है, it may be in a few states and maybe at the center. What about the other places? And even within those governments, what is happening? वहाँ पे a mob can do anything. Maybe they'll take a stricter action, but the mob still rules even in those states. So as such, as a society, at a societal level, the identity and the future is very bleak. Forget India. Let's say even let's go to US. Let's say जहाँ imagination लोगों को लगता है भाग के चले जाएंगे ना, इंडिया से भाग के US चले जाते हैं और वहाँ पे जाके सेटल हो जाएंगे. We saw what happened in UK, Leicester. I think it's called Leicester. वहाँ पे riots के बाद क्या हुआ? What is BBC going to do? They will always side with the other side. ठीक है ना? They will send an Islamist to cover your यहाँ पे भेज देंगे to make fun of Aghoris, and they'll make a documentary about it, or they'll make some documentary, because see, those both theologies are in alignment. Very, very clear alignment है वहाँ पे, ठीक है? Go to the US. US का example ले लो. वहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? You are being attacked on the basis of caste, and you are not being attacked on the basis of individual people. It is a systematic attack done by organizations in a larger scale. And the Hindus there, if you have to become successful, especially in political field also, you are continuously under siege to convert. You're continuously under siege. So either you convert, then you convert गलती से दूसरे सेक्ट में हो गए, फिर आपको डबल कन्वर्जन करनी पड़ती है to come to the right sect जिस पे वोट मिलेंगी. Take the example of Vivek Ramaswamy. अभी ठीक है, जो recent election हुए, he stood up from the conservative side, and there's a very telling video. मतलब वहाँ पे one thing good about US is you have freedom of speech. But what did he say? That you are from a Hindu this thing, and the gods of the Gentiles are all devils, and yours is a pagan devil religion. And he is speaking it openly because it's a good thing he's speaking it openly because you have freedom of speech. But that is the entire mindset there. And that mindset, and on the other side, Hindus are de-Hinduized because चाहे US में हो चाहे इंडिया में कोई ज़्यादा फर्क नहीं है. हम वो उनको कहते रहते देसी देसी, भाई इनको कुछ पता नहीं है, नहीं पता, भाई हमें भी कुछ नहीं पता है, क्योंकि हमें कौन सिखाने वाला है? They have their madrasas, ठीक है? They have their schools, they have their गिरजाघर to teach what they are. Where are our kids being taught? अगर मेरे को अभी अपने बच्चों को पढ़ाना है, I want to teach them about Sanatan. Is there a place where I can send them? No, they are not being taught about it in the schools. So it's been a very big success on that part. और आइडेंटिटी क्या है? आइडेंटिटी जो आज की हिंदू की है, द आइडेंटिटी इज व्हाट दे आर लर्निंग एट दिस इन द स्कूल्स. एंड व्हाट इज दैट आइडेंटिटी? ओ आई एम सेक्युलर हिंदू. दैट इज द आइडेंटिटी ना. मतलब और क्या है? एंड दे हैव नाउ न्यू काइंड्स ऑफ हिंदुइज्म. एक हिंदुत्व वाला हिंदुइज्म होता है और एक हिंदू वाला हिंदुइज्म होता है. भाई मतलब यार कम ऑन, ऐसे तो मत करो यार. मतलब and even the Indian media also does the same thing, and even today also, like Hindus have been virtually wiped out. They have been always wiped out from degraded in Bollywood. वो चलता था. Media spaces से we have been wiped out. Media spaces में Indian media में when you have debate. Sorry, I'm taking time, but it is I'm passionate about this. I need to talk about this stuff. So whenever you have a Hindu issue which comes up, whatever कोई भी media हो, left, right, center, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. What do? They have representatives from the political parties. And the Hindu issue becomes a issue of to and fro between political parties. Where is the Hindu representative? Every Hindu issue is a political ping pong for political parties. भाई we have as Hindus, हमारी कोई independent existence नहीं है क्या? I have never seen that you bring an independent Hindu कि भाई वो हिंदू के साइड से बोले भाई political parties आपस में play कर रहे हैं. In fact, prior to 47 we had one Muslim league. Now we have so many Muslim leagues. Almost every party is a Muslim league, and they are competing to become Muslim leagues with each other. Such is the competition. So I think I've gone beyond the scope of the question, but this is how it is. It is very bad. That is, yeah, I'll stop, otherwise I can talk about this much more. I mean, even like they also say na,
we'll get back to the question.
Yeah, just one line, like Tulsi Gabbard also openly says na कि she has been attacked for Hindu faith again and again. तो ये होता है, even in developed countries this is happening. India में तो मतलब कहाँ भागोगे कहाँ? There is no way to run for Hindus. Be very clear about that. So yeah, sorry about this. Sorry about the rant.
No. So that is actually a very relevant, if you want to call it a rant, but it is still very relevant, because this is one of the things that like I feel a lot of us is feeling कि वो हिंदुत्व का झंडा लेके हर कोई चल रहा है, but they don't understand what it is. There is no place जो उनको एक organized ढंग से सारी चीजें समझाए. Like let's say we talk about the other side, so they are so let's say अगर कोई narrative अगर कश्मीर में चल रहा है ना, within half an hour that same narrative is going to be running in Kanyakumari also. They're very clear about the narrative, and it's the same thing all around. Agar if something happens, let's say in any place जहाँ पे थोड़ा sensitivity चल रहा है, let's say in Sambal, the other side will have the same narrative running. Our side will have 10 different things, and then those 10 different people will be fighting with each other कि अरे तूने ये गलत बोला है, मेरा ये सही है. There is no coherence. There is no one to align everyone in a line, and even people are not ready to be aligned in like one line. Everyone wants to outdo the other person. And so with that, I want to also come to like the final question, because like
can I add one more line to the previous
yes
question?
of course.
So yeah, so see, we have been मतलब ठीक है, Hollywood में भी हम I watch a lot of Hollywood also, a lot of TV. The way they have wiped out Hindus from everywhere. I mean, Hindus contribute so much to the society in the US or the UK. When you look at Hollywood, you will be shown either in a degrading manner or you will be not shown at all. Abhi Dune TV series came. They have fake accents. They don't have even Hindu names. They will bring characters.
Pakistani citizen is a superhero now in Marvel. What are you talking about?
So we have become exactly. Soft power नहीं, it is hard power. It is hard power. Soft power नहीं है, hard power है. And we have actually become footnotes. So just one line what I wanted to add was कि in my mind, at least I think the future, if Hindus have to survive, there is only one way. There is only one way is we have to become an organized religion, and the organized religion has to become organized around the sampradayas, and we need 10,000 organizations like ISKCON belonging to different sampradayas with their own whatever they have. But that is the way forward, and that is the only way forward. You can't stay as a you can't compete with a Walmart if you are like little shops. No, it is not possible. So Hinduism has to evolve into an organized religion, but organized in a different manner, obviously, around own sampradayas. And if you have a huge number of sampradayas and institutions, you will have your diversity. And if we keep crying over diversity, there will be no more Sanatan to to have your diversity also, because the left cries, they make an excuse कि diversity खत्म हो रही है. Diversity भैया हम ही खत्म हो रहे हैं. Diversity तो खत्म हो ही जाएगी उसके साथ. So yeah, sorry.
No, not just that. I
Just-
mean, when you
just
say popular,
one thing I would like to add regarding the question regarding identity and memory. Entire cultures and civilizations have been wiped out. Where is the question of memory?
Hmm.
The pagans from Arabia have been wiped out. The American indigenous culture surviving just in pockets. The Greeks, the Romans, the Druids. Where is the memory? Where is the identity? They don't exist. So this is something which is very, very important for us to understand.
That is not true. It does exist. You have Marvel movies. You have not.
Yeah, they exist. Yes, I'm sorry.
Odin.
I apologize. That was factually incorrect. They exist in Marvel movies where they have been made into all your guiltiest pleasures are being fulfilled through the gods and the goddesses. So this is what will happen. This is what happens to a culture when those sacred places, which we talked about, the nerve centers, when those nerve centers are destroyed.
Was that
Not just that, I was just saying this only. When you talk about there being no representation of Hindus within something like Hollywood, it's not just no representation, it's active vilification now.
Yes.
Even, I mean, Hindus of America made a lot of noise about this as well. Last last week, Saturday Night Live skit that went on.
Whose birthday was it? What's the name? There's a singer now who was there on that show. And
I think it was Lady Gaga, if I'm
Lady
not
Gaga.
wrong.
Yeah, it was Lady Gaga, yes.
And the kind of the usage of Om Namah Shivaya, which we feel
They're chanting Om
hesitant
Namah Shivaya
using
and Kali.
outside of like dhyan or outside of temples, we refrain from just using it, and the usage of it in a skit as derogatory as
Already
that.
there. You're right.
So
Absolutely.
it's active vilification now. It's not even ignorance.
Yeah, like
Very true.
like Oppenheimer may, I think they did again what they did is what they did, and
There,
yeah. So एक साथी की there was series वो gods वाला कौन सा था? Which was that series?
American Gods.
American Gods.
So yeah, so look at how Ma Kali has been, that's the way they look at you, and they won't dare to do it with any other religion. They won't.
The monotheistic.
in this aspect, there was this movie, I'm forgetting the name, but the character of Samuel L. Jackson, I think it is, there's a very famous line from that movie, and I'm forgetting the name. That line is "Manners make it man." What is it? Where they teach the guy how to be like a secret agent. I think
Kingsman.
you know. Yeah, Kingsman.
Okay.
If I am not mistaken, there is Samuel L. Jackson's character in that, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
the movie. And throughout the movie, he's wearing a Rudraksh mala with an Om, and he's shown to be a psychopath. He wants to blow up people's head, but he doesn't like blood, so he puts chips because of which their heads will blow up in colors. And the psychopath of like the highest order, and he's shown wearing a Rudraksh. Or even that one series, Quantico, where Priyanka Chopra is like, oh no, he's not a Muslim. Rudraksh, no self. She says this line where the terrorist was dead. She checks his body and she's like, oh no. She finds this Rudraksh mala, and then in that very affected American accent, she says, oh no self-respecting Muslim will wear a Rudraksh. That's what she
Oh my
says.
God.
He's a Hindu
Imagine.
man. And this is Quantico. And this is like why we, so to say,
And
call her
that
Indian
is how they
crime.
make an impact, because Kingsman is like one of it's a trilogy of movies,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
it is one like trilogy that every child kind of watches and grows up loving.
Absolutely.
Like they don't have even
So,
they sorry again. So they don't use even Hindu names in these movies.
Of course not.
I take care. I keep looking कि ये Hindu नाम use करेंगे proper नहीं. The names are मतलब Indian
Tabu
names.
is
Not Hindu.
Sister Francesca.
मतलब they're doing
not
everything.
just that, if you watch Bridgerton, or if you watch, like, they'll have these Indian characters, or for that matter, if you watch that, there was some garbage show by Mindy Kaling. What is it? Never Have I Ever. Yes, I mean, Mindy Kaling, wherever she's been involved, she comes, she's like, ew, I hate Indian men, ew, they are this, they are that. She'll come, and she is of Indian origin. And she comes, she does that, and this is how it's going out in popular culture. And then you have these very impressionable kids and everyone's parents are busy, so no one's paying attention to what your child is watching on the net, or on their Netflix, and they're watching crap like Never Have I Ever, and they're getting influenced by it. And it's essentially a story of this Indian girl who's staying in America, and she's like, they not even make fun to your face. They'll do it in such a subtle way that you won't even realize it.
So they're doing it, basically they're doing it at all levels. Star Wars uses the name Ahsoka. It uses the term Gotra. In one of the recent TV series which has come, they're using the term Gotra for tribes. So they're doing it at all levels. The most obvious levels also, where there is active vilification. There is the subtle way also of promoting this narrative. You see the term avatar. There is no shame. There is absolutely no shame left. And then you make a TV series called, or movie called The Creator, where you say Nirmata, you use the term Nirmata, like I've said before, and then it's flashed on the screen and it says it's a Nepalese word for the creator. What is Nepalese? This is Hindi, this is Sanskrit. There is no shame left. I just hope that's not the future waiting for us.
It is organized.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's one thing should be clear. It is organized and it is very conscious. It is not something which is being done unconsciously or subconsciously. Maybe subconsciously, yes, but consciously it is being done. And because you are the last pagan civilization after all, no? Abhi agar aapko, if you are not the target, so who else will be? Aapas mein to ladte rahenge. So we are the last people who worship old gods, let's say. So we are the last ancients, we can call ourselves. But then I think yahi ho raha hai.
So, sir, I think I'll just give like one last anecdote. I've been reading Jane Eyre since I was a kid. I used to read the abridged version, and I never paid attention. Like, matlab wo padha, haan, theek hai, because if like I went to a specific school in Dehradun, so like yes, your reading list has to be a certain way, and I've always been into reading. When I grew up, like this is a couple of years back, I was rereading Jane Eyre, and there is this very specific paragraph where Jane Eyre is sent to a boarding school, and in that boarding school, her matron says to her, "Oh, you are like the demon worshipping Brahmas, the demon worshippers who worship the demon king Brahma." And I was like, how did I miss this little detail? Then I went back to my abridged version. It's mentioned there also. But these people are so glorified in our heads that, oh no, you have to read the Bronte sisters. Oh no, you have to read, Jane Eyre and all of this and that. That you ignore these things, or when it comes from them, like all over, even in Jane, other authors also, whenever they're talking about India, they'll be like, oh, it has such a horrible climate. Oh, I want to go back to London. And what are you getting in London? It's basically all wet and foggy and smoggy. You don't have any sun. You people are dying of depression. You have to take vitamin D shots just to survive your winters. But then you want to, if I may use the word, like make a caricature of the Indian subcontinent and the Indian people.
But we want Aditya to go
everybody
there.
Everybody wanted to come to India. You see the history. I'm not talking about it. The history talk about it. You talk about the Persians. You talk about the Parthians. You talk about Cyrus the Great. You talk about all these guys. All of them wanted to come here. Why? It is not a joke. Everybody wanted to come here. There's a reason for it. This is actual freedom.
And the ironical part is that they keep on making fun of the smell, or they call Indians curry, but they forget the fact that half of these people came to India for the spices. And in spite of that, their food is half cooked. It is without spices. It's the most tasteless
They came
piece
for
of
one
crap
thing
that
and they failed to incorporate it in their
exactly.
food.
And then they
It is
have the
utter
audacity to
failure. It is utter failure. And this is what, no, I mean, Sudhanshu Trivedi ji puts it so well. He says, आप बोलते हो कि बिरयानी जो है मुगलों ने दी. वो मुगल जिनके पास न घी था, न दूध था, न चावल उगाने की क्षमता थी, वो कौन सा बिरयानी बनाए भाई इंडिया आने से पहले कुछ नहीं दिया है. It is, that is what, no, you attribute a lot of what you had.
It's that same one narrative that the Aryans wrote the Rig Veda in the steppes. That same argument continues whenever any discussion takes place. It is the same kind of argument. The people in steppes who did not have anything with them, you think they could produce something like Rig Veda? It is. So there's no end to the shamefulness of these guys.
No, even if people who are not reading the books now, बच्चे अगर नहीं भी पढ़ रहे, our education system is still the same. See, new education policy has not done anything great for actually nothing. I will say, ठीक है ना? बना लिया आपने CRPC को BN SSC क्या क्या कर दिया आपने, no change. And NCERT is still teaching the same. So the idea of entire education system is to bring up Hindus who are self-deprecating, self-loathing, self-hating. So that is still going on. So your collective identity, what you were talking about, what the original question was. So this is our identity today. So largely that is what it is. And I don't see any revival in the sense, so that is what it is.
Let's not be so
Yeah.
pessimistic. Let's not be so cynical.
Realistic, not pessimistic, realistic.
Let's agree to disagree.
So coming on, like the final question that I want to ask is, when someone finishes reading Butshikan, what lingering question would you want them to have in their mind, and how would you want the readers to perceive it? Because yes, I do agree with one thing. I feel historical fiction, if presented in a very sorted approach, is one of the best ways of passing on history to generations, because not everyone has the mind to sit and read a very dry history book. But as a historical fiction, when it becomes a narrative, it is so easy to just flip through the pages. So, what is one lingering question that you would want the readers to have when they finish reading the book?
Okay, so I think you have already. I have vanished. Okay, I'm back. So you have put it very nicely, I think, and this was also the idea behind writing this in a manner, because history is not everyone's cup of tea. Even I don't like to read too much history because it gets boring after a book. Too many details, you get bogged down in that. So the idea was to actually bring it to masses. So I think the first idea should be, please buy the book. Okay, go buy the book, because unless you don't buy the book and don't read it, you'll have no clue what we are talking about. So the idea which you should take is like, previously I have talked a lot. Uska conclusion mein what I think is, see, Satyamev mera manna hai. Maybe it is not true. Mera manna hai Satyamev Jayate is not. I don't know if Satyamev Jayate is true or not. कि सत्य की विजय हमेशा होती है. I'm not sure. But I'm sure about one thing. Veer Bhogya Vasundhara. Without a doubt. Power, that is what is required. And power at a societal level, that is what is required. If you understand that and stop, अपना bubble वो जो जिसमें बुलबुले को फोड़ दो. Power is what matters in the world. Power is what matters in the real world. That is why organization is important. Once who are organized, they have the power. Individuals get power when you are organized. Organizations get power. Society gets power. So Veer Bhogya Vasundhara should be very clear in your mind. I think that is, if you understand that one part, I think I'm happy with that.
My one lingering question which I would like people to take from it is, what is Dharma? This was a big learning from me. I'm still learning. I'm still seeking the concept, the definition, the understanding of what is Dharma, what all it involves, what all it incorporates. So I'll just read out the definition given by Kautilya in Arthashastra, translated in the Penguin book, which I've given in references also. So Dharma not only signifies an absolute and immutable concept of righteousness, but also includes the idea of duty, which every human being owes to oneself, to one's ancestors, to society as a whole, and to the universal order. Dharma is law in its widest sense: spiritual, moral, ethical, and temporal. Every individual, whether the ruler or the ruled, is governed by his or her own dharma. To the extent that society respected dharma, society protected itself. To the extent society offended it, society undermined itself. This is one understanding which I would want the readers to question what is dharma, and then discuss the same thing in their homes. My son is 11-year-old. We are reading Ami Ganatra's Ramayana. He reads it and then he asks me a couple of questions from there. I start discussing with him. Then I start researching about it. This is what I want to happen in Bharatiya and Hindu households, that start asking this question, what is Dharma? The moment you start asking yourself this question, you will get the solution to every answer, every problem. The smallest issue of For example, going to the office and waiting 5 minutes because you need to drop your son to the school, you will get your answer when you ask yourself, what is your dharma at that point of time, what you have to prioritize. Similarly, when it comes to a society as a whole, what comes from that is ahimsa parmo dharma, dharma hinsa tathaivacha. Till the time you do not understand what is dharma, you will not understand the meaning of this shlok. Right? People will say that this shlok justifies fight for religion. No, it does not. It justifies a fight for dharma.
Dharma.
What is dharma? What is your dharma? You have to defend your dharma. Your dharma as an individual, to oneself, to society, to your ancestors, as a father, as a son. And you have to fight to protect that. There can be nothing more natural than this. So this is what I would like the readers to take away from. The one question is, what is dharma?
इसमें देखो मतलब ये अभी when you were talking about it, I just thought कि in fact out of all the Sanskrit non-translatables or all the words in the world which have been distorted, this is the most important word which has been distorted to religion.
Yes.
Religion is such a puny concept. You know, believe in me or hell. ठीक है ना? And it is such a puny concept when you look at in terms of dharma. So the thought just came to my mind. It is important because that is the biggest distortion. कि धर्म क्या है?
And आजकल, just connecting to it, I feel very, very bad with people using the word bhakt. Today, today, everywhere, wherever you want to degrade somebody or you want to abuse somebody, you start calling him andhbhakt. Please, I've spoken to people about it. Leave this term bhakt aside. It is a big term. It means it denotes a relationship between Nar and Narayan, between Bhagwan and Bhakt. That is the relationship. I am not some individual's Bhakt. I cannot be. No individual can be an individual Bhakt. Bhakt और सिर्फ भगवान का ही हो सकता है. That relationship exists only there. So that is another word which I feel very, very bad when it is used on social media. But yes, dharma is one word which I would really like people to think about, discuss about, research about it, and take this definition home. And read it. The more you read it, the more you realize how your everyday life is affected by that question, that what is dharma?
Loved it.
No, it is actually very apt because one of the first conversations that I had, I of course grew up in a very religious household, one that, you know, gave me the perfect upbringing in terms of teaching what dharma is, what religion means, everything. But then the Indian system of knowledge, at least that has been distorted in terms of history and in terms of civics that we are taught. One of the first conversations that I had around it when I was completely, you know, a fan of Ramchandra Guha and Romila Thapar and this and that, was with Pushpendra Kulshresht. And Pushpendra uncle asked me what dharma means. And the first thing that came to mind was religion. And he said that religion is panth and dharma is something completely different. It is not duty, it is not a religion, it is something that cannot be translated in one word in English. And the kind of earful bashing that I got after that broke away all beliefs. So yes, I completely understand. And finally, thank you so much for being here today with us on our podcast. It has been a wonderful session, and it has given us a lot of joy to talk about this book. It is one of the few, I mean, Aditi and I, because of the podcast and generally because of our temperament, tend to read a lot of history and less historical fiction and even less fiction. It is like an escape from the world of history when it gets too much that you pick up fiction. Exam times is one of the times I pick up fiction, but generally, other than that, it's history. So it has been a wonderful joy reading this book. It has been like unlike any other book that we've picked up. So to our readers, it is something that we would absolutely recommend that you read because if you like history, you will like this book. If you like fiction, you will like this book. If you like thrill, you will like this book. If you like a little bit of gore, perhaps you will still like this book. It has everything. If you want to feel a particular kind of emotion, say you feel like crying or you feel like having a lot of rage or you feel like having some pride in your a lot of pride in your Sanskriti, you will feel everything as you read this book. So it is something that inculcates, that has, a lot of history incorporated in it. And it is something that will make you feel a lot. It will make you feel a lot of emotions, a range
I
of them.
want to add one little thing. This was the first time that I was reading a historical fiction and I was not enraged at the author or authors in this case. Otherwise, half the time I'm slamming the book down ki ye kya likha hai, this is wrong. This was the first time I was actually like, yes. Matlab, aisa, like,
It
and this
is it is an Indic historic fiction for the first time instead of a historic fiction that, sort of completely breaks away from character and narrative in every which way possible. So yes, thank you so much for being here today with us, to both of you, Satyaki sir and Major Gar. And you will notice one brilliant thing, to our readers, that the book even uses accents for transliteration that are possibly the best thing, because that is something that most books today tend to miss. So that is one brilliant thing that I would like to highlight as well. So yes, thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here.
Okay.
बहुत धन्यवाद Aditi ji and Aditya ji. But just one thing about that IEST and accent, it took us so much effort to get it right, because I did it myself. There was nobody else who did it for me. So first get the correct Hindi spellings, make sure the Hindi spellings are right, then go and type it somewhere which translates it into it. So it was a lot of effort, and बहुत धन्यवाद for having us here.
you were saying something.
Yes, I have always a lot to say, so I have to like hold back myself sometimes, So thank you, Aditya and Aditya. First of all, you guys have been very, very kind. IEST ka Satyaki, he did all the effort, so he gets the credit for that. You guys have been very kind, very generous to us. I actually told Satyaki before this that I don't want it to be a one-way thing. I wanted it to be a discussion to and fro, and it was absolute pleasure, because you guys chimed in. That happened whatever way. So we love that you got involved in that, and we could this was more like a discussion and an open-hearted discussion. So it really touched me. I felt very emotional, and even now I felt very, very happy and emotional at the same time. So thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for taking